secret, so it doesn't matter.
Okay.
I'll answer any question as long as you accept the answer. So.
Yeah, so it's not live, so we can always go back and maybe beep some things out, cut. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do the clap, and we'll get going. Oh, that was a bad one. All right, there we go. Welcome back to another episode of Agents Lounge Podcast. I'm your host, Nathan, with co-host Francisco Bermudez Jr.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going fine.
And we have another guest with us today from Silverback Plumbing, Mark.
Yes.
How's it going?
It's going great. How are you guys?
Doing fantastic. Thank you for coming. And our guest speaker for today, I guess you could call it a guest speaker, right? Yeah. If you want to introduce yourself, Brad.
Sure, my name's Brad Graves. I'm a real estate agent with Coldwell Banker.
Fantastic. And we kind of got your referral from Nate. Do you work with him a lot?
Yeah, so I refer Nate a lot of business. So he's, he's kind of geared towards real estate and real estate transactions. So I met him, had lunch with him, really liked him, and sent him business.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's good at networking too, I've noticed, since I've gotten to know him a little bit more.
Yeah.
All right, so I like to do an icebreaker question really before we get going. What's a good one? I will do that. Do you have, if you could have a superpower for one full day or 24 hours, what would it be and why?
I mean, for me, it's flight. You can go anywhere you want.
That's pretty generic, honestly. We had one guy say for people to answer his phone calls, like they'd have no choice. I thought that was interesting.
Gotcha.
Do you have one, Mark?
I mean, Jesus, that's a good question. I mean, my daughter has asked me that question a million times, and I never answered it, and I guess she was prepping me for this day. But and I just never saw the sign. But if I could have a superpower, I guess it would be mind reading.
Mind reading?
Yeah, I want to know what people are thinking and stuff when I'm talking to them, or or just passing by. It's like, okay, what's this guy thinking? See somebody fishy, is like, oh, what's he thinking?
Yeah.
So I think mind reading would put me ahead of a bunch of people, and
for at least 24 hours, yeah.
For at least 24 hours, yeah.
You might learn a lot of stuff you don't want to know too with that one. Mine,
that too. Yeah.
Mine would probably be like a lottery numbers.
Oh.
Yeah, just be able to like see in the future just a little bit. Yeah.
Place a few bets.
Yeah, right.
Hey, what did the stock?
Honestly, yeah. We got football coming up. I'll put some money in there too. That's funny. Okay. All right. Yeah. So, what did you do before you got started into real estate, Brad?
Sure. So I lived in Michigan, and I was a probation officer for 8 years.
Oh, really?
Yep. 5 years juvenile probation, 3 years adult.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So my father actually was for Virginia, but juvenile probation officer.
Yeah. One of the best jobs I've ever had.
Yeah.
The kids were great. The parents were terrible. And I think
most
that's
of the time, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what really it was. When I got to the adult probation, it was much different. These people a little more scary. I was there 3 years, and my partner was on maternity leave 2 out of the 3 years, and I didn't know what I was doing, and it was just kind of a bad situation. But
really?
the 5 years as juvenile probation officer were just great. I really learned a lot, and I was really too young to do it. I mean, I was in my early 20s. I didn't know anything about stuff, so
yeah.
But
that drive to help kids. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry,
no.
but like, I can imagine that's challenging because you have to deal with parents. Helping the kids, I feel like, is like a natural pull, but then you're young like that in your early 20s, and you have to like deal with these parents who don't really care what you have to say. I would imagine maybe part of the time.
If I had a dime for every time I was asked, "Do I have my own kids?" I wouldn't even be
exactly
retired.
Right.
So that was the struggle. But it very. Very, what's the word I'm looking for? It was just a satisfying job. I mean, it really was. The adults, not so much. I mean, it was.
Yeah. What about you, Mark? Have you been in the trades most of your life, or what?
I've been doing plumbing for about 17 years now. Okay. And before this, I wore a different hat, and it falls in line with him. I was a deputy for 5.5 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for Bear County Sheriff's Office. So I did that and all that and stuff. I worked in the jail, did a little bit of patrol, and it was fun also. it was fun. I got, all kinds of. I put myself through training and schooling and all that stuff so that I can become, a good officer and be the best at my job. And whatnot. So I did a lot of school, a lot of certificates, a lot of training that was involved and stuff. I was rarely home because I was constantly taking classes and courses and stuff like that. So I did that, and then after that, I left, and I was personal protection for headliners at Sunset.
Oh yeah.
I was bodyguard. Yeah.
Nice.
So I did.
You said you have the martial arts background too. So that kind of plays
a little bit of martial arts and some different fighting styles, but yeah, and then of course firearms training and all that. So, but yeah, I did that, and then my family member of mine, who's passed on, but he's the one that actually introduced me into plumbing, and I've been doing this since.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So.
Cool.
This has got to be the best job I've ever had.
You're like the most dangerous plumber on the planet.
Silverback Security Services, maybe you could branch off.
You never know. You never know.
Do you ever want to stop people when you're driving towards a call? And
No, I mean,
sheriff?
I have to bite my tongue, and of course, I have to sit on my hands sometimes. But no, I get asked that question also. Is like, do you ever miss it? It's like, man, yeah. I mean, I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie, so yeah, I can. It's like, man, one raid. That's all I got to do, and then I'll be good for the next 17 years.
Yeah, right.
So
you got to find your fix somehow now.
Yeah, but hey, it is what it is. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a plumber now, and I love this job. I really do. And I think about it sometimes. And it's like, yeah, those are fun times. I'm not that age anymore, though.
I think the bigger question is, you ever go on a call and you walk in and you arrested that guy like 10 years prior?
That would be interesting, right?
It has happened.
No way.
Yes, it
goodness.
has happened. We and of course, is working for another company. We did actually. He didn't recognize me, so I recognized him. I was like, oh man, I remember this guy from the Joe. So I was like, but hey, I'm not doing that bid no more. This is what I'm here for. So I just kept it under wraps. And it was like,
Oh man,
we don't
can you
need
imagine if he did recognize you? He'd be like, "You're undercover, probably." I was like,
Yeah, I mean, it could go sideways like really quick. It doesn't. I mean, but I played it cool, and I was just paying attention to him and like, watching like see if there's any signs like of him being uneasy, like because then I would have been like, yeah, I gotta go. I gotta go.
Yeah, for real.
So I'm not gonna put myself in that position.
Word. Sorry, Brad. Were you born and raised in Michigan or here?
Yep. I was born and raised in Michigan. I moved here in 2006.
2006. Okay.
Yep.
So you've been here. I can't do a quick math
17
today.
years.
17
What brought you
years.
here? The food?
No. So
Taquitas West.
It's a little bit more boring than that. So I met my wife in Michigan. We got married, and she's from San Antonio. So I did not want to do probation anymore, and so I got my real estate license, and I'm like, hey, this is what I was born to do, right? So I could have started in Michigan, but it was just tanking. I mean, it turned out to be one of the worst real estate markets there.
Yeah.
So, but it was doing well in San Antonio. So my wife got a job, and we literally drove and moved in, lived with my in-laws for 6 months while we built a house, and
Nice.
that's it. Yeah. So I blame my wife.
So you moved all the way from Michigan, not knowing anybody but your in-laws and your wife here.
Just knew my in-laws. Yep.
How do you start a business like that?
Well, I was a little lucky in some regards. So my father-in-law was a small business accountant. Mm-hmm. So every week he had to do payroll. So I really started by, I would deliver payroll. I just told him, I said, listen, I have to get my license here. I had to redo it. So I'm okay just helping you and whatever. So I would deliver payroll. So I would get to know some people, and he would refer me. He would tell when he had a really good relationship with his clients, and so he would tell them, yeah, my father or my son-in-law and my wife or my daughter moved here, and he's a realtor now. And so I think one of my first 2 or 3 sales, it was a referral from him.
Yeah.
But the rest was just grinding it out. I mean, I would be on phone duty. I read back in the day, I could get a list of everybody that lived in an apartment complex. So I would literally get the list. There might be 400 people.
Yeah.
And I would just go down the line and call and hopefully I would run into somebody, their lease was up and they had a better than a 400 credit score.
Right.
And trying to find gold that way. So
That's interesting.
Cold calling. Wow.
Yeah. And that's where that superpower comes in. And you get one day of them answering their phone like they have to, right?
yeah, I want to go back on that. I think I want to go back in the past as my superpower because then you can really find out what happened during these huge events in history.
Right.
Yeah, I think for us in the trade, we're very fortunate that here in Texas, well, the AC, right? It always breaks, and you always need plumbing. So
Yeah.
I feel that we don't really have to look out for people a lot of times. Most of the times, people's water breaks, right? Drain line breaks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great thing about, like you said, the trades and HVAC, plumbing, and iron workers, whatever, whether it's new construction or service, is that we don't have to really go out and cold calls or anything like that, or not beat on doors and stuff, go to door sales and stuff. No, it comes to us because those are things that are needed. I mean, a house without plumbing is going to be pretty bad.
I have a question. How many AC companies and how many plumbing companies are out there?
In San Antonio, there's 263 or something like that registered, I guess, right? Was it 200 something?
I thought it was about 1,000.
Was it over 1,000?
No.
Yeah, and in San Antonio, as far as plumbing companies, there's about 3,000.
Oh, wow.
And
I got my numbers
and
wrong then.
And that's everything from the the little one man show all the way to the corporate type
Right.
types of companies. So yeah, there's a lot of competition out there.
Oh, man.
The guys at Home Depot, that we got to fight with.
Actually, just took a call from a customer. They picked up an AC service from Home Depot, and they were just had the worst experience.
Yeah. So the reason I asked the question is when I got my license in '06, there were 4,000 realtors. Now I think there's somewhere between 14 and 15,000 realtors.
Wow.
You could go out and throw your phone and probably hit 3 of them before it landed.
I like to say that you could throw a frisbee and hit it.
Yeah.
That's funny. So that I guess includes part-time too, independent people. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So all that's included. So you might get your license and do one deal a year, but you're still counted as one of the 15,000 realtors.
Wow.
So that sounds pretty exhausting. How long have you been with Caldwell?
So I've been with the same company for 17 years. So
Yeah?
I started there. They had low fees. There's always a commission structure. But I liked it because I didn't know anybody and I needed to start somewhere. And I had to pay very low office fees. And it was literally 5 minutes from my house. So I started there. And I just have never left.
Yeah.
I mean, in this business, the grass is always greener somewhere else. The commission structure is always better.
Right.
The manager's always better. They treat me better. They give me more leads. They do all this stuff for you, and it's just absolutely not true. I think that somebody once told me, you're best fit with the company that you're best fit with. And what that really means is, this brokerage may not work for me, where this one I fit in really well. And I think it's just a personality thing. When people go in and they have expectations about the broker and about what they're going to do for them and this and that, 95% of that is how they're going to treat their business, not what the brokerage is going to offer.
Yeah, their approach to it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excuse me. So culturally, you feel like you belong in a sense? I mean, 17 years, I can imagine. You probably have a say in what the culture is in a sense, I would imagine.
No, I don't think so.
Really?
I mean, it is fun to walk in there after 17 years, and everybody kind of knows you, and you walk around. But, I mean, I don't like being drama, right? So I don't go in, I don't tell them what to do. I've had one complaint in 17 years, so I just go in and do my thing, and I'm easy to get along with, so I don't really ruffle any feathers.
Okay.
You mentioned that when you started, it was about 4,000 real estate agents. Now they're 14. Is there a high turnover rate or people entering the industry and leaving? Or?
Yeah, sure. I'll give you the stats. I'm pretty sure I'm accurate on this. So if you take 10 people pass the real estate exam and they get their license, 3 out of the 10 are going to make it the first year. So you have a 30% chance of ever making it the first year in real estate. Oh. Out of that 3, after the second year, only 1 of those 3 are going to make it after the second year. So if you look at it, you have a 10% chance of making it 2 years in the business. So,
Man.
and it,
I've never been presented those stats. That's interesting, and that is also across the board too. So if you're with a big brokerage or not, it's about 1 out of 10.
doesn't matter. Yeah. No, those are just, it's not perfect. It might be 25% or 31% here, but
Roughly.
for the roughly, you got a 10% chance of ever making it 2 years. It's a very alluring business, right? It looks glamorous. It's you can videotape yourself. You can do all these things, and but the problem is there's no accountability when you wake up in the morning. So if you decide to go to the gym and you go to the gym, maybe you're tired after you get home at 9:30. Well, I'm going to take a shower, and by the time you get to the office, it's 11, 12. Well, I'm going to do all this, but I got to work on my listing presentation. So by 2 o'clock, you haven't made a single phone call or talked to anybody. And you're like, well, it's kind of too late. And then you just repeat the cycle. And then you find out after a year, hey, this is not for me.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's an interesting perspective that I don't think we've heard yet, right?
Yeah, no,
But then there's people that will get there and they will grind it out and they'll work hard and they'll sacrifice. And those will be the top producers. I mean, there's only really, they might say 90% do 10% do 90% of the business. It's probably more like 95% of the business is done by 5% of real estate agents.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's fair to say across most sectors of occupation. But so I guess what I'm kind of just boiling it down to is you have to have discipline to be successful in the real estate business.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Discipline, I guess, because like if you're not being held accountable, like for a 9 to 5, you don't have to clock in, right?
Yep.
So
there's going to be nobody there telling you got to get out of bed.
yeah, and that a lot of people struggle with that, to be honest. Yeah.
Yep. But there's especially if you have to have an income to survive, right? So those people are going to be a little more motivated, and again, the majority fail miserably at it.
Interesting.
I mean, just listening to you mention that you would call 400 people that were renting, like a lot of realtors will probably post like Instagram photos rather than make those calls to make those connections.
Yeah,
Well, that was back in 2006.
So-
right.
There was no Instagram.
Yeah.
No, so that brings up another question. So 17 years, how have you had to change your approach to getting clients? I mean, maybe it's been easier because you have more of a base now. You're more solid. But have you had to change your approach from like getting a list of clients that are renting or potential clients that are renting to what you're doing today? Is it more just organic now, or was it back then?
No. Yeah.
Thank God about the producer can
Oh, okay.
get that noise out.
Okay.
Yeah, he'll get off the noise.
Yeah.
No, I'll completely do it differently today. And, out of that 17 years, I've made way too many mistakes, tons of mistakes. And,
That's good.
And I'll be, very frank. I would say the first 10 years, I wasn't really all that serious about it. I did it. My wife worked, but I never really took it seriously. And the big change in my life is I met somebody in the business, and she noticed me and said, "Hey, I think you got a lot of potential." And she took me to a coaching program in Palm Springs, I guess.
Florida?
No, I'm sorry. It must have been Palm Desert in California.
Is Palm Springs, Florida, or California?
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever.
I should know, honestly.
I'm on Texas, bud. I'm on Texas.
Yeah.
I flew to California and attended a coaching program. And, at the time, you had to do a certain amount of business to get in, to even go. So I was at the low end of that. And I'll never forget, I really had a big ego, and I was ranked in the city, and I'm on like 8th in the company. And so I literally go there, and there's about 500 realtors and lenders. And I was by far the lowest on that totem pole. These people were grinders. These people, they make $1 million a year in commission.
Yeah.
And it was extremely humbling. And it wasn't until that day that I really kind of started taking a deep dive and changing my business and doing lots of different things for the business. There's people that will give you referrals and you pay a referral fee. But really, today, if you really look at my business, I focus a good amount of time on people that send me business on a regular basis, right? So pretend a plumber. He walks in, the guy's like, yeah, man, I'm getting my house ready to sell. I need to get this this faucet that's leaking done. And the plumber would be like, well, who are you going to use? He's like, I don't know. Man, I got a great realtor for you, right? So if you think about it, if you can get 40 or 50 of those people, send you one business a year, that's 50 deals, right? The other is past clients. So over the years, I've amassed a fair amount of past clients. And if you call on them and you did a good job for them, they will refer you. So those two pieces of business are really big. Lots of different ways to do it, though. I mean, there's people that just do podcasts and they do Facebook posts and they do those types of things. There's people that be successful at doing open houses. There's people that will knock on doors. I mean, there's so many ways to do it. But I was taught that way from a pretty high-end coaching program, and I've just kind of adopted that. And I tripled my business within 2 years of starting that program and really got serious about it.
Wow.
That's good. Wow.
What was the biggest thing that, I mean, I guess outside of seeing how other people do it, what is like the biggest driving factor, or not driving factor, but the greatest attribute that you pulled from that really just accelerated you and like just flipping the switch, I guess, right?
Accountability.
99%
accountability. So I'm a student now, right?
Yeah.
So not only do I have to talk to my coach twice a month, but I also have guys on my other students. So you want to beat them. You don't want to embarrass yourself. You want to do the program. You spend money to do that. And so they're there to really hold you accountable.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll fall right back into that old Brad and
I'm gonna watch the football team.
the U.S. Open's on right now, and I'll just spend 20 minutes watching, and then 20 minutes will turn into an hour and a half. And that's the old way, and I just can't do that. So you try to set your schedule up.
It's a commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah, just being a business owner, and running your own business is a huge commitment. I mean, I learned that the hard way, of course, but hearing you speak about your past and how you were, it reminds me a lot of myself, because at one point I was the same way. I had a huge ego and all that stuff, and I was about 40 pounds lighter then, and I thought I was bulletproof, and all that stuff, and but when I got into plumbing and stuff, the hard labor that was involved in it, is what humbled me. It's like, oh man, I got a whole new respect for these guys and stuff, and seeing this for myself firsthand and doing it. And at some point, I was just dedicated to being a technician for whoever I was working for, and my goals were just to make myself better as a plumber. That was it.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, came the benefits, the money, the friendships and stuff like that, but I just kept listening to the owners. I was paying attention to them and seeing how they were doing it. And that's one of the great things about what my dad taught me is like, you don't necessarily have to read a book or anything like that to learn how to do something. If you just pay attention and listen, you'll be able to see what works and what doesn't work. And my entire career, that's what I've done. Paid attention to owners, paid attention to managers, how they were treating technicians and how they were running a business and all that stuff. And I put all that in the back of my head and I just kept it there. And when it was time for me, when I pulled the trigger on my business, I remembered all that stuff.
Yeah,
it's worked out great so far. And it's like, okay, I remember this type of incident that didn't work for this guy, so I'm gonna do it this way. The complete opposite. So I had a humbling moment and stuff too, also in my life, and I think that's where I really did a complete 180. And it's like, man, I gotta chill out.
You got to be a business owner now, and you have to be a technician or you have to know the trade. It's easy to be the plumber, right? It's easy to go if something doesn't work, the boss handles it. Now you have P&L, you have to take those tough calls. You have to do those things.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of mature into that, I think. And it's no different for me and you. It's all right. Do I want to be the chief, or do I just want to be the guy that does a little bit? So it's more satisfying this way. But there's certain days it's not always that fun. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, and for me, because we're a small company and stuff, I treat my employees with respect. You got to keep them happy and stuff. So that the one thing that I've told all my employees is that I don't have a revolving door on the front of the company.
Yeah.
Don't think that you can just leave and then walk right back in. It's not going to happen. And unfortunately, that's the way the plumbing industry is here in San Antonio. Plumbers they just hop from company to company, and chasing the money that's all they care about. No, our goal and our mission is that, I'm not looking to get rich overnight. I've always said that. What I'm looking to do is help people that have plumbing issues, truly have plumbing issues.
Yeah.
We don't want to put a Band-Aid on the problem. We want to permanently fix it, and that's what our mission is. So I'm training the guys that I have is like, no, you're going to go in there and you're going to figure this out, and you're going to figure this out correctly and then make the permanent repair. So, yeah, and there's a whole lot more that goes into it, like he was saying, and, it can be difficult, but in my position, I have to be the boss and the friend at the same time, and man, that is difficult.
Right.
That is extremely difficult because I'm trying to train somebody as a friend and also tell them what to do at the same time. So it's kind of hard.
It's a balancing act, right?
Yeah, big time.
Especially in a smaller company, for sure, I would say. We could probably parallel to that thought. But it helps because, just from a personal account, like we've been the third or fourth AC company to run a call, be the third or fourth one to go out there. But though something that sells our company is just being like genuine, listening to the customer, what you said, and really just being transparent, educational, and caring. You want to treat them like whatever's going on with their situation, like it's yours. And I think the guys we have do a really good job at doing that for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's part of the training that my guys get is like you go into every house as if it were your own.
Yeah.
Just because it's another client or somebody else's house, you don't just go in there. Oh yeah, we got to cut the wall here, cut the wall there. No, it's your house.
Yeah.
If this was your problem, how would you approach it? You're going to try and make the least amount of damage as possible so that it can get fixed and all that stuff. And so these guys, that's exactly what they do, and they know already. It's like, no, I got to make small cuts, enough for me to be able to work in and all that stuff, and get the problem fixed.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's our mentality. Going into every client's house is, this is my house.
So I kind of getting low on time, but I have so many more questions I want to ask you, Brad. Do you have any? I'll give you like a two-parter. You can pick one or the other, and maybe we can hit both. Do you have any more like appalling real estate statistics that most people don't know? That's kind of like jaw-dropping, and or what is the toughest client you've ever had to deal with?
A transaction, right?
Or the transaction, yeah.
Yeah, so out of 17 years, I can probably think of 3 or 4 people that I would never work with again.
Really?
And I got lots of fun little stories and mistakes and things like that I've done. And if you have time, I'll tell you a funny one. But there's a couple. And, there's certain people out there. No matter what you do, they're never going to be happy.
Yeah.
And no matter how informed they're going to be, they're not going to be happy. And it's the ones where I've bent the most that I think have been the worst. Like, I've done crazy things like something didn't go right, so I set them up on an Airbnb for a week until they can close. But, the day they get in the Airbnb, well, it's not big enough. Or, well, I think I saw a bed bug. Or, it's just, can you get me a better one? It's that kind of mentality. And those are the ones I really regret the most. I wish I could have stand up a little bit stronger and be like,
Yeah.
um,
So was that like earlier, I guess, in your career?
oh, that was probably about 4 years ago.
Oh, really? It's interesting. So I guess that's, a learning experience that kind of helps you know where to like draw a line with your clients, right?
Yeah, you got to be strong. You got to lead, and sometimes they make the right decision, sometimes they don't. But
Man, that can burn you out more than anything.
Oh.
Like because I kind of went through the same thing when I first started. I made my first AC sale, and this lady. I mean, I was doing everything for her. I answered her phone call 3-4 times a day, talking 20 minutes each time for like 2 weeks straight, and it was just like something wrong every time. And we hadn't even gotten started with her. It was just about specs and everything. It was brutal. And it was such a good learning
I was
experience.
having
to be
a
honest.
good time because our lead text like, don't even go in it.
Yeah, the guy that's usually making those calls,
Sales.
taking those calls in sales. Yeah,
But I'm like, okay, look, we'll give him a shot because he's new to the company. But we really wouldn't have done that deal.
oh man, it was.
yeah,
It
so
was
there's
a good
just
time.
some people you're never going to make happy, and no
Yeah.
matter how well you do. And so those are the ones, you usually can get through it, expectations, but there's just some people, like, no matter what.
Yeah, and then you have the opposite end of that. So like the people where you feel like you're just doing your job, being however you usually operate, and they're just like overly just appreciative and thankful, and you're like, oh man, that makes me want to do more of that. Like I'm doing something right.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, there's some people that will go to bat for you, even if you make mistakes. Like,
Yeah.
really a good friend of mine, I made a huge mistake really early on in my career. He bought like a $60,000 house, and he still has it rented today after 17 years. But he's an investor now, so he's probably bought 6 houses.
Really?
But he believed in me, and I screwed up pretty badly, and he
Stuck with you.
stuck with me, forgave me. But I told him up front. I think that was probably it, rather than him learning on the back end.
So when you actually, I'm curious if you decide not to work with a client again, and they're like trying to, well, maybe if you just had a bad experience and you're like, no, I'm not doing that for them again. Do you tell them up front?
No.
No.
No. And they don't really want to talk to you,
So it kind of just go your separate ways.
The one I'm thinking of in particular, it was where I put them up in an Airbnb, and they ended up closing on the house, and it's like, I don't want to talk to them anymore, and they probably really don't want to talk to me. And, it was mutually time to go, right?
Yeah.
But I have had one where, I would almost say he was abusive, like, to everybody, his wife and me. And he's like, hey, man, I want you to come over, right? So I go over, and I'm sitting there, and then he just goes, like, full on, like, abuse mode, like, you're this and that.
Really, just giving it to you.
Oh, yeah. And today...
He invited you over. He's like, hey, I'll make
Yeah,
dinner
come on
for
over,
you.
So we all kind of sat around. I had no idea it was coming.
Wow.
And I can't remember the situation. It wasn't that bad, right?
Yeah.
And he just full on, my dad's a lawyer, and I'm going to do this. And let me call him. I want to. And today I would have handled it much differently. But back then I was just petrified.
Really?
I just sat there and took it.
Well, I think 17 years in the industry, like you've seen it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seen a
How to
lot.
deal with difficult situations, make it easy.
I mean,
Not-
No doubt. I mean, like the first one that comes to my mind, I'm not going to say names, obviously, but like, he keeps coming back to us, and like, I just don't get it. Like, we aren't really on like good terms, but he just keeps scheduling with our office, and I don't know like how to kind of just like close the door on that. I don't know. So I was curious. I mean, I don't know. It's a
Actually,
strange situation.
I remember the situation now, but I don't know if it's too long to go into it. But
No, it's fine. So we kind of delayed when I started recording. We probably have a couple more minutes.
All right. So he wanted I'd never do it today, but he wanted a sliding scale commission. So if he sold at a certain price, the commission would be, and I agreed to it. Not ever would I do that today.
Yeah.
But during the inspection phase, the clients wanted to up the price and then get closing cost help, which put him in a different commission tier with me. And he thought for sure I was in cahoots on that, and I was a part of that. So he sat me down to give me a good run through on how unprofessional and I was a cheat and all this and that, and it had nothing to do with me. I remember my parents were in town. I remember walking out of there and going to dinner with my parents, and I was just a shell of myself. I just couldn't comprehend what had just happened. It was pretty awful.
Wow. And then after that, did you work with that guy anymore? No, it was just cut off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
That's usually the best thing to do. Just
Yeah,
cut it off. I mean, I've had to do that with a couple of clients also.
It happens in customer service, anything, right?
Yeah, and I mean, he's hitting the nail right on the head every time he says that you're not going to make everybody happy. That's absolutely true. And as long as we can remember that, we'll be able to, spearhead these situations a whole lot better and stuff. And that's one of the things that I've learned throughout my career is like, okay, I see where this is going, and I know what's going on. And I see what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
There's some people out there that think that if they just raise their voice and make a big scene, that all of a sudden I'm just gonna cave and you know what? Here's your money. Don't worry about it.
You're right.
You're good. That's not the case with me. You know, if you have a legitimate complaint, I'm gonna tend to it. I'm gonna see it. And if there's something that we did screw up or whatever, then we're gonna fix it. And I got professionals all around me to help me get that done correctly.
Yeah.
So, but there's some people, like I said, they're just trying to make a scene so that they can get their money back, and they have no intentions of fixing whatever complaint they got and stuff like that. And it's just like, no, you're gonna stop right there. This is how it's gonna happen. You're either gonna let me fix this my way, or we can just part our ways.
Yeah.
It's that simple. You're not taking control of this. I am. I'm the professional here. That's why you called me. First off, and so this is what I'm here to take care of. But yeah, there's people that oh man, the deal is sweet at the beginning. They're super nice and everything. They're like, oh, Mark, we love you. This and that. You're our hero. But as soon as it comes time to pay,
Or something.
boom, all the complaints start coming out. It's like, whoa, where? Talk about
You're
Dr.
blamed
Jekyll,
for
Mr.
every
Hyde.
problem, right?
Yeah,
So-
talk about Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, right?
Yeah,
So, and I have to approach that a certain manner, and it's like, okay, where is all this coming from? Why all of a sudden? Why didn't you tell me this during this process? That's why I tell all my clients each and every single step that we're going to take, so that they're aware of it before we even start doing work.
Yeah.
And if there's something that comes up during the job, Mrs. Jones, I need to speak to you. I need to show you this. And this is what's going on. And they're like, oh, okay. Well, Mark, you got to do what you got to do. That way there's none of that. Well, you didn't tell me. And no.
You gotta have.
Yeah. CYA.
You have to have the good communication skills with.
Yeah. So.
Because it leads to turmoil if you're just like, oh, go ahead and do this, and it builds up. Usually you get burned with that once, and you don't have to get hit in the head with a hammer too many times to figure out how to effectively do that most of the time. Okay, one last thing, Brad. If you had to give one single piece of advice to somebody that wants to get into the real estate industry, regardless of being like an investor, maybe just getting their license, what would it be?
Just have a plan and follow it. Work hard, and don't get sucked into the minutia of the laziness. So, if you have a plan and you schedule your time and you calendar it and you follow through with it, you'll be successful.
Yeah.
It's not rocket scientist. It's not rocket scientry on any level, but you have to be committed. I think that's.
Yeah. And if you aren't a super accountable person, have somebody in your life, find somebody in your life that's gonna call you out.
Yep, absolutely. Accountability is huge.
Right. Yeah. Cool. And definitely. Yeah, we could go probably another 30, 40 minutes. But Brad, Mark, thank y'all for coming to today's episode. We really appreciate having y'all.
Yeah, appreciate it.
We'll see you next time on the Agents Launch podcast. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.